about three things. The first is data management and the infrastructure that is required to manage a lot of data for these massive enterprises. The analytics and insights that come out of understanding and studying customer data. And then making that actionable, and making it actionable across many marketing channels. And so when we say real time, that means in real time, and multi-channel decisioning, meaning, well, what's the best message at the right time for the right audience. So you'll see some icons there of some clients that we work with today, and we're going to talk about some use cases that a few of these have done with us as they harness the power of their own data. So the big thing, though, that we want to do is say, well, what's the real benefit of harnessing your data? If I get on top of this and control this, what do I really get out of it? Because it's siloed, it comes in a lot of different places. At the end of the day, what we want to do is bring marketers the opportunity to have one view of their customer. Again, to drive insights, to syndicate audiences and messages across channel, and to synchronize those messages across channel. Now, we're going to talk about some resources today, too, that you can tap into across the ANA's website and our own. The first one is that right this month, you'll see it on the ANA.net homepage, is the ANA's e-magazine, which is gorgeous, beautifully done. There's a great article there by Jim Spiros and his Fidelity team, and how they really, looked at all of the data across their enterprise and how they made it work for them across their famous Green Line campaign. So with that, I'll talk about the actual agenda that we're going to walk through today. 5 major points. First, the challenges. The challenges of data centricity. Second, well, what is a DMP? With many emerging technologies, definitions can be tough. Acronyms are many. And so we're going to talk about, well, what exactly should a DMP do? We'll walk through some use cases, 2 in particular. First, what a major international logistics company is doing to build the customer engagement they're seeking across channels. And then second, how a DMP helped one marketer use their in-house customer data to really heighten their effectiveness and efficiency across their online ads. 4, we now have heightened your interest, of course, in this webinar today, and we want to provide you with a search checklist that you can use as you think about searching for a partner that provides data management platform services. And then we want to leave you with some resources, of course, and answer any questions that you might have. So now we're going to get into it a little, and I really want to start the conversation with Dave, and who's worked with a number of our major clients, and say and ask, well, marketers used to have a pretty simple view of their purchase funnel, and of course that's changed. Now, how has that changed from the perspective of the marketers that you work with, Dave?
Sure. Really 3 major changes that we see, Perry, and that we want to highlight. So when we take this customer view, there's been a couple of shifts as we move to an online environment. One is around control to the customer. So the purchase cycle, if we think about, if we're purchasing a car, for example, and traditionally we're getting exposed to ads when we're out being exposed to media, watching television, etc. And now with the internet, obviously the control is in your hand. You can hop online and do your research and research the brands you see fit. So one major shift is really this control around the customer, and that heightens the need to have data about that customer, which is what a DMP can help you do. Second shift we've seen is that it's really the metaphor has really shifted from a straight funnel to that of a cycle. Whereas traditionally when we thought about marketing, we thought people narrowed their selection set down as they went from top of funnel awareness through bottom of funnel conversion. And behaviors we see now when we look at data is that people really cycle through those different phases and come back to the beginning and really, kind of rinse and repeat as they go through. So again, if you think about that car purchase cycle you might go through, you may get very specific about a car that you're configuring and scheduling a test drive, and pretty close to that intent level, and then you may cycle back and learn all about an Audi if you're searching for BMW, for example. So that it's much more cyclical, and finally the number of channels that the consumer can interact with the brand through, and the devices, of course, has added a lot of complexity. So, you hear this all the time, but I think it is important context for a data management discussion is that, we've gone from the world of 15 years ago, really the three major networks and a few major media channels, and now we not only have a plethora of channels across websites, display, search, social, mobile, etc., but we also have a plethora of devices. So the ability to really have that customer-centric, relevant message in this world of complexity is another big change we've seen in the purchase funnel. That's the customer view, and as we kind of move through this story and start to think about how as a marketer you should be considering data management and that data management roadmap, we've pulled together a framework, and this is available for download as part of the landing page we'll share with you guys today. It's an X+1 framework around a digital marketing maturity model, as we call it, and we've also done some work with Forrester on this framework. And the reason we pulled this together is often when we're out in the marketplace with marketers, we're faced with the question of, hey, where do I start with my data-driven marketing efforts? There's so many different directions I can go in. Where do I start? So we laid out a framework based off of experience across channels and across customers, and look to not only lay out where does one start, but really, what do you do first? And what we've done is put together this maturity model that starts at a basic level of maturity and really allows marketers to self-identify of where their organizations are in that maturity curve, and from where you are today, start to lay out kind of what you want to do next. And if you think about laying out marketing as a transformation program, the steps that you want to go through as you transform your organization. So we kind of look at the world with a framework like this, and also as we talk today, we're going to talk about two companies in particular and some case studies around how they've really used data to drive great marketing. That first company is called CCP Games, and CCP Games is an online, massive multiplayer online gaming company, an online-only business, and currently sitting at about a level 2 to 3 on this maturity curve. And we're going to talk about how CCP Games used a data management platform really to drive analytics. That was their use case of how do I use analytics to improve my marketing, improve its efficiency, improve its effectiveness, and drive measurable business value. So we'll talk about CCP, who's at a level 2, and then we'll talk about a very different company, FedEx. Perry Ann referenced the global logistics company. FedEx is your classic enterprise business, and sitting at that level 4 of channel connectors, and FedEx is really using these technologies to manage seamless and relevant cross-channel campaigns. So for CCP, it was really about analytics. For FedEx, analytics is a piece of it, of course, but cross-channel and when they know their customer, being able to be appropriate and relevant for that customer across each channel is their objective in this transformation. And now when we dig into the maturity model a little bit deeper, I know this is a bit of an eye chart. We use this with clients and with prospects to kind of self-identify where you sit today. And the common theme for today's discussion is that really, regardless of your maturity and regardless of kind of which pillar you sit in, data is foundational across each one of these steps in your marketing journey. So at a more basic level, for folks who are acting more as broadcast marketers, really outbound messaging, not a lot of inbound or one-to-one campaigns, data is really functioning as a reporting mechanism, right? So even at our more basic levels, we're using reports around display campaigns, reports around website behavior, and using that to drive our campaigns. As we move up into what we call A/B advocates, which is where testing really becomes a discipline in your organization, and you test every program you do, data starts to become an analysis tool, right? So you start to be able to take action, pull insights out of your tests, and take action and change what you're doing as a result of data. As you move into a personalization framework or personalization worldview from a marketing standpoint, data really starts to build segments for you. So the underlying one-to-one marketing and underlying everything we do from a data-driven marketing side is segmentation and being able to identify, even if someone's anonymous, which of our segments do they fit into? Do they look like a high-value customer? Do they look like a Main Street customer? And as a result, which creative or which product do I want to feature to them when I see them on my website or when I see them out in display or in social? The segmentation point of view is all fueled by data. And then as we move up, channel connectors, data really drives that cross-channel point of view. So you need those data breadcrumbs or data hooks to be able to stitch together a cross-channel view of a prospect or a cross-channel view of a customer. And in some cases, you can do that with a cookie if you're seeing a given prospect through the same PC across channels like search and display. Or you can also stitch that data together through an ID, so a unique customer ID. And the nice thing about that is if you do have a known customer ID and you're doing cross-sell or upsell kinds of campaigns, you can use that across devices as well. So when you start thinking about cross-device campaigns, all that can be enabled through these kinds of platforms as long as you have a known customer ID. And finally, kind of led into the use of data at the top level. Again, here it comes back to bringing customer data to bear in your online campaigns, whether it's demographic data or whether it's campaign exposure data from your broadcast campaigns. Really any attribute that might be explanatory or predictive in driving a campaign against your customer starts to come into play at this level 5. So, as we work with companies, and it really looks like a bell curve of where companies sit in their distribution along this maturity curve. With a lot kind of grouping around level 3. Not so many at level 1, not so many at level 5. The one common theme, as I said, though, is data, and how do you manage your data to really move up this curve? Because without data management as a pillar, you're never going to get beyond testing. Levels 3, 4, 5 are not attainable without a good data management framework and foundation.
So Dave, when we hear clients talk about their challenges, a lot of what they say these days is that they have a major challenge around, say, attribution. I don't know what part of my marketing or media plan is driving which results. And a lot in the digital and media trades and publications about this today. A lot of new attribution tools out there. And it's just one part of the story, right?
Right, yeah. There's a couple of buzzwords you hear a lot out at conferences and trade shows and just networking with peers. One of those is attribution. Right, so everyone's asking, and I think being asked by our management of how do I get a cross-channel view of what marketing is doing against a customer or a prospect. So attribution is one piece of it. Cross-channel execution is another piece, right? We all want to be able to execute cross-channel campaigns. So those are two important benefits that come from a DMP. Other challenges we hear, though, once we kind of get past those first two, are around aligning marketing and IT. Right? I've worked. One client of mine actually had two DMP efforts going on simultaneously. Marketing was driving one with their agency and kind of coming at it from the display media side of the world. IT was coming at it from the database and CRM point of view and had their own DMP software selection going on, and they kind of ran into each other in the middle at some point and finally straightened it out. But getting that alignment is important because a data management platform, clearly a technology tool and something that IT is at the very least going to be feeding data into, and quite possibly also supporting. So that alignment's important. Channel silos is something that hopefully DMP can help you get around or address. Traditionally we've managed our digital programs in very siloed ways, where we've had a search bid management optimization tool or search engine management optimization tool. We've had a website analytics tool. We've had a DSP or display media buying desk. We've had really a tool per channel, and that's one challenge that we hear folks really grappling with these days when they're trying to do these cross-channel campaigns. And finally, tagging. From a tagging side, I've heard some stats around average number of third-party tags per corporate page in the neighborhood of 20 tags per page, believe it or not. And if you have one of those little plugins on your browser, you can go and surf around as you surf the net, and you see you wouldn't be surprised by that number, right? And IT organizations are starting to fight back. They're getting held to service level requirements. They're being held to paid response times, and they want to end this tag proliferation. So that's another challenge that we hear folks talking about, and a lot of these roll up though to this concept of point solutions and the pain points of bringing these point solutions together. And if we move forward here, we talk about point solutions. I gave some examples earlier of channel-specific implementations, but I think we in the ad technology space are a little bit guilty of addressing most problems with a point solution. So if you have an attribution problem, we'll give you an analytics solution. You want to bring in your offline data, we'll give you an onboarding data solution. You want a dashboard? Sure, we can sell you a dashboard. And there's different companies that have really emerged, in a lot of cases, focusing just on one of these specific pain points or specific marketing use cases. DSP around display, we talked about some of these earlier. And on the one hand, they're all, many are third-party tag-based and say, trust us, we can integrate with one another. But what we see is that this spaghetti that starts to build up does get very difficult to manage, and you end up with a lot of breakage. We talk to clients, we talk to advertisers, that breakage that happens between these point solutions. You have data breakage where you can't have a single view of the customer because you're cookie syncing and daisy chaining cookies together, and you start to lose fidelity on who a prospect is or who a customer is. There's organizational drain. There's often different teams within the advertiser side or within the IT side in a corporation manage each one of these point solutions, so you get some inefficiencies there of different teams managing different tools. And as a result, you lose, you waste some time, or you lose some time in doing that. And a way to bring these point solutions together again is through a strong data management roadmap, a strong data management platform, and with that, these point solutions can start to work together again from an execution side and from an attribution side. So to peel back the onion a bit on what is a DMP, I was out talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they said, what's all this hype about DMPs? Isn't it just another database? Haven't we had databases for years? Why are we suddenly so excited about another database? And there are a couple of distinctions between a DMP and a database that I want to highlight, and we'll talk about those kind of in the context of what the solution stack is for a DMP. So one important distinction or one important element of a DMP is that it has a real-time service level response agreement, real-time responsiveness. That's really important. So when you're using data to serve a display campaign where out in the display exchanges you need a 20 millisecond response time in order to bid an ad out in Google, or if you're serving out on your website, you need to make sure that wherever that data is sitting that you're querying can respond very quickly. And all these DMPs have been architected to internet speeds, whereas a traditional database could never, you can never request your customer data from a database and get it back in time, in a 20 millisecond time frame. So that's one really important piece of the real-time nature of it. The second important piece is that DMPs will sync with a cookie. In a lot of cases, it's a third-party cookie. Can also sync to your first-party cookie. Some DMPs will do that, and what that does, it makes those audiences portable. So, again, in a traditional database, you could have a lot of data, but it would be hard to send that data over to your email provider, or it would be hard to send that data over to your agency who's running your display campaign, because there wasn't a common key or a common methodology to execute that. So that's another important distinction with a DMP, is that they've all been designed in a way to make your audiences portable, and that's what makes this cross-channel campaign really possible. So with that, it's kind of two distinctions of real-time availability and portability, based off of a cookie mapping. To talk you through the different elements and kind of how we go from data through execution and analytics. At the bottom layer, kind of work from the bottom up in this diagram here. At the purple layer, we start at the data collection and data management layer, where this is where your different data elements all come together and are keyed against a common taxonomy. So it could be keyed against a single cookie, keyed against a prospect ID or customer ID, and here's where you start to really get some interesting campaign executions, because you could bring together, for example, your customer data, that second box over on the left, over on the right, with third-party data over on the left, or behavioral data, to drive some different campaigns. So let's say you're a credit card issuer, and you know that you have a customer who is one of your high-value customers. There's someone who you want to put a campaign in front of, but you don't know specifically what. You can then append to that customer that they're a travel intender. So there's someone who's in market for you for a travel card or for some travel rewards. So that'd be an example of how you can bring together third-party travel intender data with customer data, and you have a whole different kind of campaign than you could have executed before, where all you knew was that person's demographics. So at this base layer, you can bring together your data, you can onboard offline data, you can bring together your behavioral data, so what ads is someone exposed to, what ads does someone click on. Sometimes you hear that called second-party data, which is kind of the data exhaust that everyone throws off as they're surfing around the net and doing their online activities. That's the behavioral. And social is another element that we've brought in here and keyed against that same taxonomy. All that can then kind of moves upstream, oftentimes through APIs or application programming interfaces, which means that this data can then push up into your DMP, or can be piped out to other platforms. And here's where the marketer view comes in at the audience creation level. So audiences, or segments, as you might hear them called, are where the marketer can really come in and take these data attributes and construct multi-attribute, multivariate audiences that they can run campaigns against. So the example of I want to target a campaign. I'm an airline. I want to target a campaign for people in the Northeast who are business travelers who have flown in the last 6 months. Construct those three data elements together into an audience. That's what we're referring to with Audience Builder. You can also algorithmically build audiences, or you can machine learn your way to audiences with statistical tools. At x+1, we call it PO. PO is the name of our statistical tool, but there's certainly various statistical modeling approaches out in market, and the notion here is that rather than just using your marketing rules or your marketing instincts or history around which audiences you want to build, you let the model identify those audiences and identify your different segments and what's predictive of response, and model your way to it. And you can then push these audiences up into execution for various channels, and you see kind of the usual suspects across the channel view here, and finally robust reporting across all of those. So these are the common stacks you'll see in most DMPs. Depending on where the company came from a technology heritage. Some, whether it's more from the CRM world or the display world, you'll see different slices of this. But these are your common pieces that you run into. Now, bringing us back to Perry Ann, where you led things off. I've just gone through a lot of technology discussion and hopefully laid out some of the components of what's behind the DMP curtain. But let's bring this back again to the benefits of the marketer and why we should really care about this. Why we should spend some of our precious time and our days, evaluating whether a data management platform is something our organization needs. One view of the customer, again, critical. As we're in this splinter net, as the analysts like to call it, being able to bring that together into a single view of the customer, clearly an important element to driving good campaigns. The insights we can pull out of that, the ability to syndicate our audiences or pipe our audiences out to different channels where we want to execute a campaign, and finally synchronization, all important pieces that really help you in driving good marketing campaigns. From the IT point of view, there's a couple benefits, and our friend Joe Stanhope over at Forrester has released some interesting work on this around the idea of the evolution to marketing insights and real-time intelligence. And from the IT point of view, again, as a marketer, we want one view of the customer. From an IT point of view, IT folks really look for one view of data. So if you can key all that data into one actionable place, that's certainly a benefit to IT. With some of these enterprise tools, there's the ability to do server-to-server integrations. Your IT folks, we talked about those third-party ad tags and how those are not so welcome these days. And there are now tagless or server-based ways to wire a DMP into your marketing campaigns. And finally, it gives IT a way to coordinate with marketing around digital intelligence and serving up not just data, but serving up insights. And these are all benefits that you and your IT brethren can share around why you might want to go down this path or go down this kind of roadmap. So I think we've talked about the customer point of view. We've talked about the marketing point of view. And now we're going to shift gears. We said we'd go through a couple case studies about how this stuff has been used in real life, out in the wild on actually running some live campaigns. And we're going to start with an enterprise example on how FedEx is using some of these technologies and some of these approaches. FedEx is kind of your classic enterprise company for folks who have worked with them, very process-driven, very global in everything they do, and that's really how FedEx approached integrated marketing, and having a single data management tool was important for them in making their integrated marketing programs happen. And from an evolution standpoint, FedEx really started 2-3 years ago where they had they're more of a business to small business marketer. So email was a really important channel for FedEx, and they did that really well. They're starting to dabble a bit in some other channels. Display, a very important channel from an awareness standpoint. We know FedEx, a real leader in brand awareness, brand recognition, and bottom line, using a lot of channels well independently and in silos, but really no integration. They just kind of pushed products through each channel, and that was from a metrics point of view as well. Metrics were, they knew if someone opened an email or clicked on an ad, but couldn't tie that to conversion. So it was really more of an outbound approach towards marketing, and what they wanted to do is get marketing to the same level of maturity or same level of excellence that their e-commerce site had. FedEx, known as one of the preeminent e-commerce providers, one of the first folks out there with package tracking going back probably 15 years ago, and they wanted to get marketing to at least that same level of sophistication. So they approached and really put together a top-down integrated marketing program that really started with executive management and has now scaled globally across about the last 3 years. And at the heart of that, as you can see in the middle of the chart here, is an integrated view on data, and an underlying data management platform to bring together those channels and those customer touch points. So we'll talk through an example campaign of kind of how they brought this to life. So what they did was identified a pilot campaign to really prove out what an integrated campaign could look like, common view of the customer, common view of the analytics, and if they stitch that together, what would the incremental benefits be? How much better would it perform than the way they used to do things? So, what FedEx did was they had a campaign around 777, which was for them was a new product launch. So they had new planes that could fly from point A to point B without having to stop, and it meant your packages got from point A to point B faster because they didn't have to stop and refuel. And they wanted a way to get this campaign out to very specific members of, or very specific customers who did business with FedEx. They wanted to make sure that their high-value customers knew that they could ship internationally, and FedEx should now be thought of not as just a domestic shipper, but as an international shipper when they did their shipping. And the channels for this, as you can see on the bottom left, were site, email, display, social, and search. So they looked to cast as wide a net as they could around execution. And the calls to action were both brand-based, so awareness around this program, and they also had some more DR calls to action around tracking for people who were exposed to this ad. Did they ship a package internationally, and did they open an account that had international capabilities? And that was ultimately what they were trying to track to and evaluate performance against. So to give you kind of a before and after view on things, what we see here is 4 primary channels where FedEx executed the campaign. So media up on the upper left, email going clockwise over on the right, BAG and SAG refers to their big advertising placements on their homepage and their small advertising placements on their homepage, and finally search. And they had FedEx had kind of a control group of the channel-specific metrics, and this is how they would have executed, how they would have managed kind of pre-data management, pre-integration, or pre-interactivity, as they call it. So you see it's a reasonably scaled campaign, about 75 million impressions in media, and you see the clicks and conversions that came from that. Some moderate email campaign with almost 1,000 click-throughs. You guys see the numbers here. So this is how they would have executed in the past, and this kind of would have been the extent of their view on that campaign. How did each channel perform in a silo and with very little interactivity between channels? So then with the data management platform underlying all of this, it both changed the execution of the campaign and also changed the measurement of the campaign. So what you see here is that we've added 2 new channels. So the lists channel on the top there, that's offline customer lists that FedEx is able to import and then serve impressions against. And on the bottom, what they're referring to as pages is other pages on their website where they're able to remarket to visitors who are exposed to these ads. And essentially what you see is there's kind of a flywheel effect where, again, the orange boxes here on the chart are the additional impressions and the resulting clicks and conversions that they got from having a single view on that customer. For the technical folks out there, what we enabled all this with was a single cookie. So what we knew is that once we exposed that given cookie to an ad, we could then remarket to them in media. And you see over on the left the additional media impressions that were served against that cookie. We went with an additional 2 million media impressions based on people who were exposed and clicked on that in the past were now part of a remarketing pool. And similar behavior around the cycle here, where based on previous behavior, previous clicks, previous impressions, we were able to remessage and increase all of our marketing metrics around the whole campaign. And the net of it is, I know there's a lot of numbers on the chart here, but really 3 main takeaways in terms of results. One is they're able to increase overall campaign reach by 10%. So they grew the top of funnel of people in segment, in target, who they exposed to this campaign by 10%. Interestingly, things performance gets a lot better as well as you move down that funnel. So the click rate increased by 1/3. So even though they increased top funnel by only 10%, click rate overall across this group increased by 1/3. And actually these interactive audiences accounted for almost 3/4 of the conversions. So at the bottom of the funnel, there was a significant flow-through in benefit as a result of having this integrated view on the campaign. So that's kind of a quick run through on FedEx, and I'll run you through a case on CCP, and we'll come back to some questions as we get through this. Again, quickly, CCP is a massive multiplayer online game. So they're a digital-only company where you go and you sign up for an account, and you can create a whole world and a whole character for yourself in an online environment and fight aliens and spaceships and do all sorts of cool stuff like that. They have about 300,000 active gamers, and they're a global company, about half in the U.S. and about half rest of the world. For them, the takeaway here was, how do I use a platform like this for analytics? How do I better drive my display? How do I better drive my search? Because think about a business like this, it's all about feeding top funnel, feeding acquisition. So if you have 300,000 gamers, there's always going to be people falling out of franchise because they've moved on to something else. You always need to be feeding that beast. So for CCP, really what they want to do is have a cross-channel analytics tool that allowed them to optimize their paid media, so that's display and search, drive traffic to their landing pages and optimize those landing page experiences, and also get integrated analytics and attribution across those channels. So that's really what CCP was, the analytics use case around a DMP. We have a funnel here where, interestingly, we talked about how they're executing through 3 or 4 channels, but look, it's one funnel, right? If you take the prospect view on the world, I don't care if I saw them in search, display, they've been on my landing page, it doesn't matter. What I care about is, am I growing that top of funnel, and am I seeing my conversion rates perform adequately as people move through the funnel? And at a customer level, can I try and reduce churn? And at a trial level, can I turn those trialers into buyers? So this is really the marketer funnel view on the world. And what CCP got with some cross-channel analytics, and really what they did was they started with feeding search and display and landing page clicks and impressions into a single tool. So that was really step one, of feeding all the data into a single tool. Second, they broadened their view on KPIs. So much of our interactive measurement over the years has been around last click, last view, which could be kind of a narrow way to look at things. You end up optimizing to the bottom of funnel. So that with this platform, they increased their view on KPIs, and we see some examples of them here, and really were able to get a top-line business view, simple things like how are my homepage visits trending, how are my attributed conversions trending, down to very specific metrics around trials versus buys. And finally, they entered into more of an open data sharing relationship with some of their partners. They had been skeptical about sharing data based on some of their network partners, and didn't want to drive the wrong behavior. But with this program, they really opened up their data sharing relationship and drove some great results. From an output standpoint, to highlight a couple takeaways that they got from this cross-channel analytics view. One was a much more nuanced view on display performance. So by tracking every single display impression, not just last click and last view, but every impression served against a cookie, they were able to identify that the ideal frequency was actually between 4 and 6 impressions. And you see at this green bar chart, there's a diminishing returns curve there where your additional impressions of 7 to 50 really were having little incremental benefit on getting that person to trial as a gamer or to convert to a buy. So they're able to manage frequency on display, which is a metric and a lever that a lot of us don't have in display traditionally, right? So this is a new and more nuanced way to manage our display campaign. And with that, they also reallocated about 40% of their display budget to other display publishers, other display buyers, and drove conversions through that. What we see on the bottom right is a view on search and display working together. So traditionally, we look at search and display and measure them in silos. With the DMP though, you can overlay those two and measure what I think a lot of us have believed for a while, that they kind of work together, right? If I'm running search and display together and heck, layer on TV and other campaigns, there's a synergistic effect between marketing. What we're able to do here is quantify that, where you see that the blue bar is conversion rate for people who were exposed to both display and search, or I should say cookies who were exposed to both display and search. The red line is cookies who were only searched, no display exposure, and you can see there's about a 2x lift for multi-channel exposure versus search only. So an insight that helped them in managing both of those channels more effectively and more efficiently, and allowed them to make some better budgeting decisions around how they allocated their budget. So those are a couple analytic highlights from the data management work that CCP has going in optimizing their programs. And this is all available in more detail in a case study that Joanna O'Connell wrote up. And I believe Joanna O'Connell spoke at an ANA event last week. Is that right, Fran?
That's right. She's at the ANA Financial Conference, I think, a week and a half ago.
Excellent. So more on that in Joanna's paper, which you can download from our site. So to put a wrap on this, and we'll get into some questions. There's a couple quick takeaways, and I always feel like I'm kind of straddling the world of technology and marketing here. So we'll try and close with how some technology capabilities of a DMP deliver on marketing benefits, and how can you translate some of the tech speak you might hear out there into how it might help you as a marketer. First is the capability of first-party match key, meaning that with some DMPs in market, you can now key a campaign against your own identifier, your own customer ID, your own prospect ID, instead of a cookie. And the benefit there for the marketer is this now allows you to target in non-browser-based channels, non-cookie-based channels such as mobile, against that same prospect or that same customer. So kind of frees you up from the cookie, allows you to target against an ID you can recognize across channels, and allows you to do that non-browser, non-cookie specific targeting. So one real step forward from a DMP. Second is you may hear about eligibility criteria and eligibility rules, and what we're referring to there is that there's it's important. I guess to take a step back, most businesses get pretty complex from a rule set when you actually go to run campaigns. You get beyond simple geo-targeting or a simple are you a customer or not targeting pretty quickly, and you want to look for platforms that have more robust rules engines with them and built into them, because you'll quickly grow out of the other platforms that are a little more simple in how they do rules. Centralized creative decisioning, if you can have all your creative in one place, that allows you as a marketer to eliminate silos around creative and around messaging. Subscriptions is kind of the technical definition of subscriptions, where you can subscribe to data, or other systems can subscribe to data from your DMP. And what that means is that you can syndicate events out to your call center. You can syndicate events out to your email platform based off of what someone does on your website. So for example, if you've ever gotten 2/3 of the way through buying a pair of shoes and you stop and you get an email 10 minutes later saying, hey, would you like to complete your purchase? That would be an example of data getting syndicated from one platform to another. And there's a lot of kind of powerful ways you could follow up on people who don't make it all the way through the funnel with that kind of capability. Self-service, pretty simple, puts things in your control. I think anyone who says you get completely away from IT control is kind of fooling you. There's always going to be some technical element or IT element to manage these kinds of platforms, but if you have your own interface, you can certainly control good portions of your campaigns. And finally, with server-side integration, we talked a little about this earlier. This gets you away from the third-party cookie and allows you to share information across partners, across channels, from your email provider to your DSP, from your DSP to another DSP. You name those point solutions, but if you have server-based integrations and APIs, that makes your ability to run cross-channel campaigns a reality. So just to wrap here, and I think we have about 10 minutes for questions after we wrap up here. But we started out really talking about this from a maturity model point of view, and the net of this is you don't want to bite off too much at once. You shouldn't think about running coordinated customer-based cross-channel campaigns if you don't have the basics of testing in place yet. So the maturity model will help you get those foundations in place and evolve down your roadmap. The technology that stitches all this together for you as a marketer is a DMP, and we talked about the benefits you get from that. And as you work with your IT counterparts, it gives you, it kind of finally brings together, I think, both organizations around the people who use the data and the people who source the data into one place. And we've provided you a checklist in that previous slide that hopefully gives you some good tips as you're going through a software selection. And a lot of good resources out there on this topic. Gartner and Forrester are writing a lot about this. You also are seeing some of the bigger consulting firms. Bain, I've seen some pieces on this, and Accenture, and a lot of good material out there in this growing field. So
now we're going to take some questions.
Okay, great, guys. Thanks so much. Wonderful job with the presentation. Really appreciate your time today, and thanks for leaving a few minutes here for questions. We'll get right into those. Just real quick, a reminder that we will be sending everyone a copy of the slide deck. A link to the recording will also be up on our website, so you'll be able to follow up and get these materials on demand in a few days. So with that, let's move on to the first question. Christina has a great one that came in. She wants to know if you could talk a little bit about some of the preparation that was needed in order to execute the DMP campaign with FedEx.
Sure. Yeah, good question. When I think about this, I think about DMPs. I feel like it shifts a little bit of the bottleneck from execution to preparation. Funny enough, you kind of oftentimes think of the bottleneck moving further out in the process, but it does, when you can execute more easily through a platform, it means that you're planning up front. Takes a little more time. You got to spend a little more time on planning. So from a preparation standpoint, a couple things that they have in place there. One, they have a campaign management tool in place. So that's kind of a workflow to bring your different channel parties together around a common view of the campaign. So that's important as far as underlying technology. They got the channels. There's a kind of syndicated integrated marketing team that's cross-channel. There's still an email team. There's still a display team. There's still a site team. There's still agencies supporting each of those. So they brought those folks together into a planning process to coordinate creative, coordinate spend, coordinate impressions, coordinate timing. So that, from a kind of old-fashioned project management standpoint, they got folks together to coordinate that. And another important prep step here is to make sure you're coordinating your analytics up front as well. I've seen a bunch of these campaigns where you plan a lot of planning up front and execution. It goes off flawlessly. Then you go to measure it, and you say, wait a minute, we didn't set it up right to measure it. And your analytics team says, well, heck, I was really hoping to slice the data this way and that way. And, oops, campaign ran 2 weeks ago. We didn't do it that way. So you want to make sure you engage your analytics team in that planning step as well, so that you can measure it the way you want to at the back end. Because at the end of the day, if you can't measure it, a lot of the value in these kinds of programs is hard to prove.
Yeah, I would add that FedEx has their organizational matrix work for them. It's very strong. And so they would have, of course, corporate-wide analytics parts of their organization, but also in their channels. So when they look at things across the organization, they're still maintaining the robustness in the marketing channels.
Right. Exactly. And they've really taken a center of competence approach to all this. So, before I was kind of talking campaign-specific preparation, but as an organization, they've built center competency, and again, it was really a top-down effort, and that was in place before executing campaigns like this. So that certainly helps as well.
Great. And how about more generally speaking in terms of timing? What is a company looking at in terms of time to start, time to be up and running with something like this?
Sure. So, as far as the technology initiative goes, it's actually pretty quick. We've seen companies be up and live in as short as 6 weeks on data management platforms like this. Both and that's not a tote for ours. I've seen companies using other DMPs and getting live that quickly as well. So it's a matter of getting your tags on the page, or getting your server-to-server integration set up, and getting the initial data loaded in. You don't have to get everything loaded in the first go-around, and people rarely do. So pick some priority attributes that you want to target some campaigns against that you have in the pipeline, and 4 to 6 weeks is certainly a reasonable expectation.
Okay. And I always like to give our attendees something nice to take away right away. So would you mind just providing maybe 3 essential pieces for data management success for anyone?
Sure. So, we talked earlier about a senior management sponsor. Feels a little cliche to say, but it really is important to have that in place. These things are hard to make work grassroots because they involve data and security and some sensitive things. So senior management sponsor is one key to success. We talked about that IT and marketing alignment being very important. You don't want to have parallel efforts happening, and make sure you're working lockstep in IT. And when I've seen it, clients and advertisers work that way, things can just go so smoothly when both folks are in the room from the first meeting. And finally, 3, I encourage people to take a multi-channel view on their DMP. Take the long view on the DMP. You want to get a platform in place that doesn't just allow you to do data-driven marketing in a single channel, but allows you to port that data asset. Really what you're doing is building an asset of data and allow you to leverage that asset in as many channels as you can. So I encourage people to think not just about display, not just about email, but a platform that can really do the real-time multi-channel execution.
Okay, great. So before we go, do you want to just take us real quick through these resources that you've made available for everyone?
Thank you so much. Top 4 resources that we talked about today is, right on the ANA homepage is the eMag. There's a couple of great articles in there. We talked about some Forrester case studies. You can get free copies of these at a landing page that x+1 is set up at x+1.com/ANA. You'll find some other resources there too. If you're interested in getting a private demo at your company of what a DMP looks like, feels like, give us a call. Visit our website. You can certainly reach out to Dave and I. And then if you, we've actually built a little video that tells a customer story, and that's available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/x+1video. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much to the ANA.
Okay, guys. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. I put your contact information up for everyone. We'll leave it up for a few minutes. Thanks again for your time. That concludes our program for today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar Wednesday.